Years later, the alien queen saw him again. The human, who had once risked everything for her Marcus Chen, adjusted his blue diplomatic uniform one more time as he walked through the long corridors of Kepler Station. His hands were sweating. Today was the biggest day in his career, maybe in human history. The young man had worked as a junior diplomatic attaché for only 2 years. Most days he just carried messages and organized meetings. Nothing exciting ever happened. But today was different. Today, the Zephyrian Empire was coming to Kepler Station. The Zephyrians had been fighting the Vorthan Confederacy for over 100 years. Millions had died in their war. Entire planets had been destroyed. Now, for the first time, both sides wanted to talk about peace, and they had chosen humans to help them. Marcus still could not believe it. Humans were new to space. Most alien species thought humans were too young and simple to matter, but that was exactly why the Zephyrians and Vorthans trusted them. Humans had no reason to pick sides in their ancient war. "Chen," called his boss, Ambassador Rodriguez. "Are you ready for this?" "Yes, sir," Marcus replied, though his voice shook a little. "The meeting room is prepared. Security teams are in position. Everything is ready." Ambassador Rodriguez nodded. "Remember, we are just observers today. We help translate and keep everyone calm, nothing more. This is their peace to make, not ours." Through the large windows, Marcus could see the Zephyrian ships approaching. They were beautiful, long and curved like silver fish swimming through space. The largest ship glowed with soft blue light. That was where Queen Lyrale would be. Marcus had studied everything about the young queen. She was only 25 years old, but she ruled one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Her people loved her because she cared about peace. The old Zephyrian kings had only wanted war. "Ships are docking now," announced the station computer. "Prepare for diplomatic arrival." Marcus felt his heart beat faster. He had never met alien royalty before. He had never met any royalty before. The docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Queen Lyrale walked in first, and Marcus forgot how to breathe. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly. Her silver hair flowed like water down her back. Her eyes were the color of deep space, dark purple with tiny points of light like stars. She wore simple white robes that moved like clouds around her. Behind her came 12 royal guards in silver armor. They carried no weapons, a sign of trust. More Zephyrian diplomats followed, all looking nervous but hopeful. "Your Majesty," Ambassador Rodriguez said with a deep bow. "Welcome to Kepler Station. We are honored to help you today." Queen Lyrale smiled. When she spoke, her voice was like music. "Thank you, Ambassador Rodriguez. Your people have given us hope for peace. We will not forget this kindness." Marcus tried to stay invisible as the group moved toward the meeting rooms. His job was to watch and learn. The real diplomats would handle everything important. But as they walked, something felt wrong. Marcus had excellent hearing, better than most humans. He heard whispers in the walls, footsteps that did not match the diplomatic schedules, voices speaking in Vorthan language where no Vorthans should be. His blood turned cold. Marcus quietly touched his wrist communicator. "Security, this is Chen. I think we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" came the reply. "Possible infiltration. I hear Vorthan voices in Section 7. That area should be empty." "Checking now," security replied. Minutes passed. Marcus stayed close to the diplomatic group, but his eyes watched every shadow. Every sound made him jump. His communicator buzzed. "Chen, you were right. We found evidence of break-in at Section 7. Someone used stolen human security codes. We are searching now." Marcus's mind raced. Stolen human codes meant someone wanted to blame humans for whatever was about to happen. If something went wrong during the peace talks, both sides would think humans had betrayed them. How many intruders? He whispered into his communicator. Unknown. They are very good at hiding. We think they are heading toward the main meeting hall. The main meeting hall, where Queen Lirelai would be sitting in 30 minutes. Marcus ran through the station's layout in his mind. He knew every corridor, every room, every system. He had studied them all during his training. There were 3 ways to reach the meeting hall without being seen. Security was checking 2 of them, but the 3rd way led through the reactor level. Marcus broke away from the group and ran toward the nearest elevator. His boss called after him, but he did not stop. If assassins were coming through the reactor level, they would tamper with the station's power systems. They could cut life support, disable shields, or worse. The elevator seemed to take forever. When the doors opened, Marcus heard voices echoing in the reactor chamber. Vorthon voices, speaking in quick, angry words. He peered around the corner and saw them. 6 Vorthon soldiers in black armor working at the main control panels. They were not just cutting power. They were overloading the reactor itself. Marcus understood their plan in a horrible moment of clarity. They would cause a reactor explosion that would destroy the entire station. Everyone would die, Queen Lirelai, the human diplomats, even themselves. The peace talks would end before they began. Both sides would blame each other, and the war would continue for another 100 years. But they had made one mistake. They did not know about the experimental quantum shield. Marcus had read about it in classified reports. The shield could protect the station from almost anything, even a reactor explosion, but someone had to activate it manually from inside the reactor chamber. And once activated, the person inside would be trapped with deadly radiation levels. It was a suicide mission. Marcus thought about Queen Lirelai's smile. He thought about the hope in her eyes when she talked about peace. He thought about all the people who would die if this war continued. He thought about his choice. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped into the reactor chamber. The Vorthon soldiers spun around, surprised. One raised his weapon, but Marcus was already moving toward the shield controls. He slammed his fist on the activation button just as the first energy blast hit the wall behind him. "Quantum shield activated," announced the computer. "Warning, lethal radiation levels detected in reactor. Chamber, evacuation recommended." But the chamber doors had sealed automatically. No one could get in or out now. Through the thick glass window, Marcus saw Queen Lirelai and her guards running into the corridor. She had heard the explosion. She pressed her hands against the glass, her star-filled eyes wide with shock and confusion. Marcus smiled at her and mouthed the words, "You are safe now." The radiation hit him like fire in his veins. He collapsed to his knees, then to the floor, but the shield held strong around the station. The reactor explosion, when it came, bounced harmlessly off the quantum barrier. Queen Lirelai watched the human boy who had saved her life. She did not even know his name, but she would never forget his face or the way he smiled even as he died for her people's chance at peace. The last thing Marcus saw before darkness took him was the Queen's tears, falling like silver rain against the glass. Marcus woke up to the sound of machines beeping around him. His whole body felt like it was on fire. Every breath hurt. Every heartbeat sent pain through his chest. "He's awake," said a voice he did not recognize. Marcus tried to open his eyes, but the light was too bright. He tried to speak, but his throat felt like sandpaper. Where was he? What had happened? Then he remembered. The reactor chamber. The radiation. Queen Lirelai's face behind the glass. "Am I dead?" he whispered. "You should be," said the voice. It belonged to a woman in a white coat. "You received enough radiation to kill 10 men, but somehow your body is fighting it off. We've never seen anything like it." Marcus managed to open his eyes. He was in a medical room, but not on Kepler. Station. The walls were plain gray metal. No windows, no identification marks anywhere. "Where am I?" he asked. "That's classified," said another voice. A man in a black uniform walked into view. "I'm Commander Hayes, Human Intelligence Division. We need to talk." Over the next few days, Marcus learned the truth. He was in a secret medical facility 3 systems away from Kepler Station. The doctors had been working on him for 2 weeks, using experimental treatments that were still being tested. "The radiation changed your cellular structure," Dr. Martinez explained. "Your body is rebuilding itself, but not exactly the way it was before. You heal faster now, you're stronger, but we don't know what other changes might happen." Marcus looked at his hands. They looked normal, but when he concentrated, he could feel something different inside him, like electricity running through his veins. Commander Hayes visited him every day with questions and news from the outside world. "The peace talks failed," Hayes told him on the 3rd day. "The Vorthons are claiming the reactor incident was a human trap. They say we lured both sides to the station just to eliminate their leaders." Marcus felt sick. "But that's not true. I saved them." "We know that. Queen Lyrelei knows that. But the Vorthon government doesn't care about truth. They want an excuse, to blame someone, and humans are the perfect target." Hayes showed him news reports on a small screen. Vorthon warships were moving toward human space. Their leaders were demanding that Earth surrender Marcus Chen for trial as a war criminal. "But I'm not even supposed to be alive," Marcus said. "Exactly," Hayes replied, "and that's our problem." Commander Hayes explained the situation. The HFY Vorthons wanted to put Marcus on trial and execute him publicly. If humans refused, the Vorthons would attack Earth. But if humans handed Marcus over, it would prove that humans had been part of the assassination plot. "So what happens to me?" Marcus asked. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "Officially, Marcus Chen died on Kepler Station. He died a hero, saving the diplomatic mission. There will be memorials, statues. His name will be remembered forever. And unofficially? Unofficially, you need a new name and a new life. Somewhere far from human. Space, somewhere the Vorthons will never find you." Marcus stared at the ceiling. Everything he had ever known was being taken away from him. His family would think he was dead. His friends would mourn him. He could never go home again. But people were alive because of his choice. Queen Lyrelei was alive. The peace talks might still have a chance. "I understand," he said finally. 2 months later, a man named David Stone arrived at the Titan mining colony in the Outer Rim. He was quiet and kept to himself. He worked harder than anyone else and never complained about the dangerous conditions. The other miners noticed that David healed unusually fast from cuts and bruises. They noticed that he could work longer shifts without getting tired. But in the Outer Rim, people did not ask too many questions about each other's past. Meanwhile, in the inner systems, something unexpected was happening. Queen Lyrelei had returned to her homeworld changed. The sacrifice of the young human had affected her deeply. She could not stop thinking about how someone so young had given his life for people he had never met. "Humans are not primitive," she told her royal council. "They have something we have lost. They have courage without selfishness." The Queen began studying human culture and history. She learned about human wars and human peace. She learned about human art and human dreams. The more she learned, the more impressed she became. "We must protect them," she declared. "The Vorthons want to destroy Earth because they fear what humans might become. But I have seen what humans already are." Queen Lyrelei used all her influence to restart the peace talks. This time she met with Vorthon leaders privately, without human mediators. She told them about Marcus Chen's sacrifice. She showed them recordings from the station's security cameras. "This human boy had no reason to save my life," she said. "His people gained nothing from helping us, but he chose to die rather than..." Let our peace fail. If we cannot honor such courage, then we do not deserve peace. The Vorthon leaders were moved by her words, but their government still demanded justice for the reactor incident. Then you shall have it, the queen said, but true justice. We will investigate together. We will find the real conspirators, and we will build a peace that honors the sacrifice made for it. The investigation took months, but eventually the truth came out. A radical faction within the Vorthon military had planned the assassination. They had stolen human security codes to make humans look guilty. They had wanted to destroy the peace talks and continue the war. When the evidence was revealed, the Vorthon government was embarrassed. They agreed to new peace negotiations, this time with special protections for human space. Queen Lyrale made sure humans were included in every agreement. She gave them trade benefits, protection treaties, and most importantly, respect. The human Marcus Chen saved my life and saved our chance for peace, she announced to the galaxy. His people will always be welcome in Zephyrian space. They will always be under our protection. She never knew that Marcus was still alive, working, in the dangerous mines of the Outer Rim. She held memorial services for him every year on the anniversary of Kepler Station. She built a statue of him in her palace garden, showing a young man with kind eyes and a brave heart. Sometimes she would sit by the statue and wonder what the galaxy would be like if more people had his courage. Far away, David Stone read news. Reports about the growing peace between the Zephyrians and Vorthans. He read about Queen Lyrale's speeches about human courage and dignity. He read about the memorial services for Marcus Chen. He was glad his sacrifice had meant something. He was glad Queen Lyrale was building the peaceful galaxy he had hoped for. But sometimes, in the quiet of his small mining cabin, David Stone missed being Marcus Chen. He missed having a real name and a real life. He had saved the galaxy, but he had lost himself in the process. For now, that had to be enough. 15 years had passed since the incident at Kepler Station. David Stone wiped sweat from his forehead as he climbed out of the collapsed mine shaft. In his arms, he carried an injured Altarian worker whose blue blood had turned pale from oxygen. "Loss! Medical team!" David shouted as he reached the surface. "Lung damage! Possible internal bleeding!" The other miners stared in amazement. The shaft had collapsed 3 hours ago, trapping 12 workers under tons of rock. Everyone thought they were dead, but David had gone down alone with just a torch and his bare hands. This was the 11th person he had brought up alive. How? "Does he do it?" whispered Jana, a young human engineer. "No one could survive in those conditions." Marcus, who still went by David Stone, handed the injured worker to the medical team. His clothes were torn and his hands were bloody, but he was already healing. By tomorrow, there would be no sign of injury on him. "Just lucky, I guess," he said with a tired smile, but it was not luck. Over the 15 years since Kepler Station, David's abilities had grown stronger. He could see in complete darkness. He could hold his breath for over an hour. His body could survive extreme heat and cold. Most importantly, he could sense when people were in danger. The mining colonies in the Outer Rim were full of dangers. Cave-ins, equipment failures, pirate attacks, and worse. David had saved hundreds of lives over the years. People called him the Guardian because he always appeared when things looked hopeless. Stories about him spread from colony to colony. Some people said he was an angel. Others said he was a ghost. A few claimed he was a secret government agent with advanced technology. No one guessed the truth, that he was the dead hero Marcus Chen. David had learned to live with his new identity. He moved from colony to colony every few years so people would not notice that he never aged normally. He kept journals about the people he helped, but he never stayed long enough to form deep friendships. It was a lonely life, but it had purpose. Every person he saved was another small victory against the darkness in the galaxy. Meanwhile, far away in the capital of the Zephyrian Empire, Queen Lyrale was changing the galaxy in her own way. The Queen stood before the Galactic Council, her silver hair now wearing a crown of starlight. She was no longer the young, uncertain ruler who had survived Kepler Station. 15 years of leadership had made her wise and powerful. "Honored representatives," she said to the gathered alien diplomats, "today we vote on the Human Protection Act. This law will guarantee safe passage for human ships through all Allied territories." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The Corvani representative, an insect-like being with multiple eyes, stood up. "Your Majesty, with respect, humans are still a young species. Why should they receive special protection that other species do not get?" Queen Lyralay's star-filled eyes grew cold. "Because 15 years ago, a human gave his life to save mine and preserve the peace we all enjoy today. Marcus Chen asked for nothing in return. His people gained no territory, no resources, no power from his sacrifice. They simply gave, because it was right." She gestured to a holographic display showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. "Since then, humans have helped build hospitals on Vorthon worlds. They have shared their agricultural knowledge with hungry planets. They have rescued stranded ships of every species without asking for payment." The Queen's voice grew stronger. "If we cannot protect those who protect others, then we are not worthy of protection ourselves." The vote was unanimous. The Human Protection Act passed into galactic law. After the session, Queen Lyralai returned to her private garden, where a statue of Marcus Chen stood among the flowering trees. She visited it every day, sometimes talking to the stone figure as if he could hear her. "We are building the peaceful galaxy you died for," she whispered, "but I wish you could see it." The Queen had never married, despite pressure from her advisors. She told them she was too busy with her duties to think about romance. But the truth was deeper than that. No one had ever impressed her the way that young human had in his final moments. How could she love someone who had never shown such courage? But unknown to both David and the Queen, darker forces were watching their successes with growing anger. In a hidden base on the edge of known space, the Hegemony Council was meeting. The Hegemony was a secret alliance of 12 species who believed that only the oldest and strongest races should rule the galaxy. "Humans have become too influential," hissed Commander Vex, a reptilian draconi with scarred scales. "The Zephyrian Queen treats them like equals. Other species are beginning to respect them. This cannot continue." General Korth, a massive Ursinian with silver fur, slammed his fist on the table. "We should have eliminated them 15 years ago. Now they have allies and protection treaties." "Patience," said the council leader, a shadow-wrapped figure whose species was unknown. "We have been preparing for this moment. Our agents have infiltrated human colonies. Our weapons have been tested. Our plan is ready." The leader activated a holographic map showing human space. Red markers appeared on dozens of worlds, each one representing a Hegemony strike force. "In 72 hours, we will launch Operation Cleansing Fire," the leader announced. "Every major human colony will be attacked simultaneously. We will use biological weapons that target human DNA specifically. No other species will be harmed." "What about their allies?" asked Vex. "The Zephyrians will defend them." "The Zephyrians will try," the leader replied. "But they cannot be everywhere at once. By the time they respond, the human species will be extinct. We will blame it on a natural plague. The galaxy will mourn briefly, then forget." Commander Vex smiled, showing sharp teeth. "And the Queen's precious Marcus Chen statue will stand in a garden dedicated to a dead species." The Hegemony had spent 15 years planning this moment. They had studied human weaknesses. They had developed weapons specifically designed to kill humans. They had positioned their forces perfectly, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had not planned for David Stone. 3 days later, alarms began sounding across human space. The first attacks hit mining colonies in the Outer Rim. colonies where David Stone was currently working. As David watched Hegemony ships descend from the sky, dropping biological weapons that killed his friends and co-workers, something inside him changed. The quiet miner who had spent 15 years hiding his true identity remembered who he really was. He was Marcus Chen, and Marcus Chen had never run from a fight when innocent people needed protection. The war for humanity's survival was about to begin, and this time, the hero everyone thought was dead would not hide in the shadows. The sky above New Terra was burning. David Stone piloted his stolen mining ship through the chaos, dodging enemy fire as Hegemony warships rained destruction on the planet below. 3 million humans lived on New Terra, humanity's most important colony world. Now they were all trapped in a nightmare. "Mayday, Mayday!" came a desperate voice over the radio. "This is Emergency Shelter 7. We have 200 civilians trapped under rubble. The biological weapons are spreading. We need immediate evacuation." David gritted his teeth and turned his ship toward the shelter. Behind him, 10 other mining vessels followed. Word had spread quickly through the outer rim. The Guardian was leading a rescue fleet. Miners, traders, and transport pilots had volunteered to help, even though they knew it was a suicide mission. "Guardian, this is Captain Mills," said one of the volunteer pilots. "Hegemony fighters are moving to intercept us. We're not going to make it through." "Yes, we are," David replied firmly. "Stay close to me and follow my lead." David's enhanced reflexes allowed him to pilot his ship in ways that should have been impossible. He weaved between enemy laser blasts like he was dancing. His followers struggled to keep up, but somehow they all made it through the enemy lines. Emergency. Shelter 7 was a massive building designed to protect civilians during emergencies. Now half of it was buried under collapsed concrete and twisted metal. David could hear screaming from inside. "The building is too unstable," reported Captain Mills. "If we try to dig them out, the whole thing might collapse and kill everyone." David stared at the wreckage, calculating angles and weight distribution. His enhanced senses told him exactly where the survivors were and how to reach them safely. "I'm going in," he announced. "Guardian, that's suicide." "No," David said quietly. "That's my job." Meanwhile, high above the planet, Queen Lyralei's royal fleet was fighting the largest space battle in galactic history. The Queen stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display with growing desperation. Her silver hair was pulled back in a warrior's braid, and she wore the blue armor of her ancestors. "Status report," she commanded. "We're outnumbered 3-1, replied Admiral Caney. "The Hegemony caught us completely by surprise. They have biological weapons specifically designed to kill humans. Our medical teams can't find a cure." Queen Lyralei's hands clenched into fists. For 15 years, she had built a peaceful galaxy. She had protected humanity and given them hope. Now she was watching it all burn. What about the ground situation? Evacuation is proceeding slowly. The Hegemony is targeting all rescue ships. But there are reports of a small fleet performing impossible rescue operations. Someone called the Guardian is leading mining ships through enemy lines. The Queen's star-filled eyes widened. "The Guardian? I've heard stories about him. Show me the footage." On the main screen, battle recordings showed a mining ship performing incredible maneuvers. The pilot was rescuing people from locations that should have been unreachable. He was taking risks that no sane person would take. "Get me a closer view of that ship," the Queen ordered. The image zoomed in just as the mining ship landed near Emergency Shelter 7. Through the cockpit window, they could see the pilot, a human man with dark hair and determined eyes. "Can you enhance the image?" the Queen asked, her voice suddenly strange. The technical officer increased the resolution. The pilot's face became clearer. Queen Lyrelei gasped and stumbled backward. "Your Majesty, are you all right?" asked Admiral Caney. The Queen stared at the screen in shock. She had looked at that face every day for 15 years. She had built a statue of it. She had honored its memory in countless speeches. It was Marcus Chen. "That's impossible," she whispered. He's dead. I saw him die. On the surface, David was crawling through the collapsed shelter, following his enhanced senses toward the trapped civilians. The building groaned and shook around him as hegemony bombs exploded nearby. He could hear children crying in the darkness ahead. A young voice called out, "Is someone there? Please help us." "I'm coming," David called back. "Just stay calm." He squeezed through a gap between two fallen concrete slabs and found them, 30 children and their teachers, huddled in a small pocket of space. The air was running out, and the biological weapons were slowly seeping in through cracks in the walls. "We can't get out," said one of the teachers. "The way we came in is completely blocked." David looked around with his enhanced vision. There was another way out, but it would require moving a massive support beam. If he did it wrong, the entire shelter would collapse. "Everyone get behind me," he ordered. David placed his hands on the beam and pushed with all his enhanced strength. The metal groaned and began to bend. Slowly, an opening appeared. "Go! Everyone out!" The children and teachers crawled through the opening just as the building began to collapse behind them. David followed, pushing the last child ahead of him as tons of concrete crashed down where they had been moments before. Outside, his rescue ship was waiting with Captain Mills at the controls. "Guardian!" Mills shouted. "Hegemony fighters incoming! We need to go now!" David helped load the children onto the ship, but there was no time to put on his helmet. The enemy fighters were already firing. Above them, Queen Lyralay's flagship provided cover fire, its weapons lighting up the sky. "Get me a communication channel to that mining ship," the Queen ordered urgently. "Channel open, Your Majesty. Rescue. Ship, this is Queen Lyralay. You are cleared for immediate departure to the safety zone." David froze at the sound of her voice. After 15 years, he would recognize it anywhere. He looked up at the royal flagship, knowing she could see him through her sensors. Their eyes met across the emptiness of space, separated by metal and atmosphere, but connected by a moment that had changed both their lives forever. "Marcus?" the Queen whispered, her voice carrying over the open communication channel. David's hand moved slowly to his radio. After 15 years of silence, Marcus Chen finally spoke. "Hello, Lyralay. Sorry I'm late." Before the Queen could respond, the largest hegemony battleship opened fire on both the mining ship and the royal flagship. David's ship was caught in the blast and began spinning out of control toward the planet's surface. "Marcus!" the Queen screamed. "All ships, protect the Guardian!" Admiral Caney ordered without waiting for permission. The Zephyrian fleet moved to intercept the falling mining ship, but they were too far away. Queen Lyralay made a decision that would echo through history. Helm, ramming speed. "Put us between that ship and the planet. Your Majesty, that will expose us to the enemy's main weapons. Do it!" The royal flagship dove toward the falling mining ship, its shields extended to maximum power. Enemy fire hammered against the barriers as the Queen's ship caught David's vessel in a protective embrace. Both ships spiraled toward the planet, locked together and surrounded by enemy fire. The reunion was happening exactly as it had 15 years ago, with both heroes willing to die for each other. But this time, they would face the danger together. The two ships crashed into New Terra's surface in a ball of fire and twisted metal. For several terrifying minutes, there was only silence. Then slowly, figures began crawling out of the wreckage. Marcus pulled himself free first, his enhanced, healing already working on his injuries. Blood ran down his face, but he was alive. He looked around frantically for the other ship. "Lyralay!" he called out. "Here," came a weak voice from the royal flagship's wreckage. Marcus ran toward the sound and found Queen Lyralay trapped under a fallen beam. Her silver hair was matted with blue blood, and her star-filled eyes were dim with pain. "I can't move. My legs," she whispered. Marcus examined the beam carefully. It was too heavy for even his enhanced strength to lift alone. But he noticed something important. The ship's power core was still active. "Hold on," he said. "I have an idea." Marcus connected the power core to the ship's emergency lifting systems. Slowly, the beam rose just enough for him to pull the Queen to safety. "How did you know how to do that?" Lyrelai asked as Marcus helped her stand. 15 years of mining equipment teaches you a few things, he replied with a sad smile. Besides, I used to be pretty good with technology. They looked at each other for the first time in 15 years. Both had changed. Marcus looked older and carried himself with the confidence of someone who had faced danger countless times. Lyrelai had grown from a young, hopeful queen into a wise and powerful leader. "I thought you were dead," she said softly. "I built a statue of you. I held memorial services every year." "I know," Marcus replied. "I heard about them. I wanted to contact you so many times, but the galaxy needed Marcus Chen to be dead so that David Stone could live," she finished. "I understand. You saved more lives by staying hidden." Around them, the battle continued to rage. Hegemony ships were systematically destroying human settlements while the Zephyrian fleet fought desperately to protect them. "We have to stop this," Marcus said. "But how? They have too many ships, and their biological weapons are specifically designed to kill humans." Queen Lyrelai activated her emergency communicator. "Admiral Caney, status report. Your Majesty, thank the stars you're alive. We're holding our defensive positions, but barely. The enemy has us outnumbered and outgunned. We need a miracle." Marcus looked thoughtfully at the wreckage around them. An idea was forming in his mind, a dangerous idea that would require everything he had learned in 15 years of mining. "Lyrelai, do you trust me?" he asked. "With my life," she replied without hesitation. "Good, because I need you to order your fleet to do something that will look completely crazy." Marcus explained his plan. The Queen's eyes widened as she listened. "That's incredibly dangerous," she said. "If it fails, we lose everything." "If we don't try, we lose everything anyway," Marcus pointed out. Queen Lyrelai activated her communicator again. "Admiral Caney, I need you to gather all available ships and follow these coordinates. I'm sending you a mining expert who will guide the operation." "Mining expert, Your Majesty?" "You'll understand when you meet him," she said, looking at Marcus, with a mixture of admiration and concern. 30 minutes later, Marcus stood on the bridge of the Zephyrian flagship, surrounded by alien officers who stared at him in amazement. The dead hero of Kepler Station was alive and planning their counterattack. "The Hegemony made one crucial mistake," Marcus explained, pointing to a tactical display. "They positioned their main fleet in the asteroid field near New Terra. They think it gives them cover and protection." "Doesn't it?" asked Admiral Caney. Marcus smiled grimly. "Not if you know how to make asteroids explode." Using his 15 years of mining experience, Marcus guided the Zephyrian fleet through the asteroid field. He identified the largest asteroids and showed the engineers exactly where to place explosive charges. "These asteroids contain crystalline structures that will create a chain reaction," he explained. "If we detonate them in the right sequence, we can create an explosion large enough to disable their entire fleet." "What about the radiation?" asked one of the engineers. "Won't it be dangerous for our ships too?" Marcus thought about the radiation that had nearly killed him 15 years ago. The radiation that had changed him into something more than human. "Leave that to me," he said. The plan worked perfectly. As the Hegemony ships advanced through the asteroid field, Marcus triggered the explosions. The chain reaction lit up space, like a new star, creating an electromagnetic pulse that disabled every Hegemony ship within 50 light minutes. But the radiation was indeed dangerous. It began affecting the Zephyrian ship's electronics and threatening the crew. That's when Marcus did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He stepped into the ship's engine room and absorbed the radiation directly into his own body. His enhanced physiology, changed by the Kepler Station incident, could process, and neutralize the deadly energy. For the second time in his life, Marcus Chen used his own body as a shield to protect others. When the radiation cleared, the Hegemony fleet was helpless. Their ships drifted powerless through space, their crews forced to surrender. The war was over. In the aftermath, Queen Lyralai and Marcus worked together to build something new. The Hegemony's attack had shown the galaxy that cooperation was essential for survival. "We need a new kind of alliance," the Queen proposed to the Galactic Council. "Not just military protection, but true partnership between all peaceful species." Marcus, no longer hiding his identity, became the first human Zephyrian ambassador. His unique biology made him a living symbol of how different species could work together and become stronger. The Chen Doctrine, as it came to be known, established principles that would guide the galaxy for generations. All species were equal. All had something valuable to contribute, and none would be left behind when others were in danger. 6 months. Later, Marcus and Queen Lyralai stood together in her palace garden, looking at the statue that had honored his memory for 15 years. "What should we do with it?" she asked. "Keep it," Marcus said. "It reminds us that sometimes the most important thing we can do is be willing to sacrifice everything for others, even if we don't actually have to die in the end." The Queen smiled. "You know, I used to talk to that statue. I told it about my day, my problems, my hopes for the future." "What did you say?" "Mostly, I wished you could see the peaceful galaxy we were building. I wished you could be part of it." Marcus took her hand gently. "I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Together, they watched the sunset paint the sky in colors of gold and silver. Around them, the garden bloomed with flowers from a dozen different worlds, a living symbol of the unity they had created. The galaxy was finally at peace, and this time both its guardians were alive to protect it. In the distance, children from many species played together in the palace courtyards, growing up in a universe where cooperation was stronger than conflict, where courage was honored above conquest, and where the sacrifice of one young human had inspired an entire galaxy to become something better. Marcus Chen had saved the galaxy twice, once by dying for it, and once by living for it. Both times he had chosen love over fear, hope over despair, and others over himself. The galaxy would remember.